That is the way to kick off a show. This is the way to kick off the playoffs. It is playoff time in NASCAR. Every Thursday, we are going to go inside the playoffs. I'm Shannon Spake, Daytona 500 winning crew chief Steve Letarte, Mamba Smith. And for the next 2 Thursdays, this guy right here, 2 championships, 231 wins across NASCAR's top 3 series, Kyle Busch. And when conversations started, you are welcome. I'm going to give you a second to kind of say your thanks. Because when conversations started, there was one driver that we wanted on this set. KFB. Am I wrong?
I feel honored. No, that's awesome. I appreciate that. So it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to being a part of the TV programs here. I've never really taken part of it, so hopefully I don't screw up too much.
I'm just excited that I get to sit in the same room as Steve Letarte, Shannon Spake, and KFB. They're going to have a lot of fun throughout this whole thing and talk a little racing.
That's right.
It's a good crowd and a great time of year. It's the playoffs. We talk a lot about cars and technology, but humans. The vice grip of emotion is going to be here. The pressure of the playoffs, they're here, and it's going to be great.
The vice grip, that's your word, the word of the day?
Yeah, I've been there. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
So it's going to be uncomfortable for these 16 drivers.
Well, I hope he makes it uncomfortable for some of the guys and takes us really inside, because no one knows the playoffs and the drivers that are in the playoffs better than you. So, of course, last week had a front row seat for the end of the race, the closing laps. Chase Briscoe, so dramatic, winning the race with that walk-off win.
Can't say enough about Chase. He promised us last week that he was going to bring everything he had all night tonight.
Great start by the 14, matched by the start of the 8. Lots of positions in one set of corners.
Briscoe Busch racing for the win and a shot at the playoffs.
Plenty of time to make it happen here.
And he's within a car length.
Southern 500 win is going to go to Chase Briscoe as he holds off Kyle Busch.
Oh my God, this is a freaking Southern 500, guys.
Great job. Damn, close.
To come in here for a last-ditch effort and have a shot. I wanted it last week. I wanted it this week. I wanted it in Atlanta. I wanted it in Vegas. Maybe I'm a washed-up old dog, but hopefully I can find a few more trophies.
All right, obviously not a washed-up old dog, but when you watch the end of that race, not necessarily just how things went down for yourself, but Chase Briscoe doing what he was able to do, the moves that he made on the racetrack, having a front row seat for that, what was that like?
It reminded me a little bit of Kevin Harvick, you know, like a walk-off moment. Kevin, how many times was he able to do that through his years of SHR? So great run by Chase. I mean, the whole team, they really executed well that day. They brought a fast race car, and they were able to put it all together. And to be able to get out front with his slingshot move down the backstretch and being able to put himself in position, having that clean air, to then control the rest of the race and to be able to do what he needed to do to run away from the rest of the field that had the same tires as he, that was pretty impressive.
Well, I think, you know, winning races are always amazing, and that's everyone's goal. But the Southern 500, in my opinion, is the biggest test of NASCAR. Skill, talent, patience, equipment, everything. Each track has their kind of signature, but the Southern 500, the 500-mile race run at Darlington, one of the oldest racetracks, you run so close to the wall to be good there, and I still feel like it's like a driver's racetrack. As a crew chief, I can only make your car so good. At some point, you're going to have to kind of like search around and find something.
I disagree, Steve. I disagree. We're not even a minute in. I disagree.
Oh, no, it's a driver's show. No,
SHR has got Darlington figured out, though. They've always been good there. How many times did Harvick dominate that place? You know, so I would say that was actually one of Harvick's better tracks with the next-gen car as well, too, compared to the results that he had elsewhere. So give credit where credit's due. Team did a great job.
Team did a great job, but Briscoe didn't make the mistake with our man over here breathing down his neck.
That's the second time. Sorry to bring this up, Kyle, but Briscoe's done that twice at Darlington, and Darlington is, to your point, it's a driver's track. Like, you can make mistakes, and it's the 500, such a long day. It's hot, and those mental mistakes is really what separates the good guys from the guys that are just guys. And for you to be breathing down his neck for the second time and him not to make a mistake and put it in the fence where probably a lot of guys would, that, to me, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Kyle Busch?
So how much are you like cat and mouse? Like what? Like, don't give away all your secrets, or do give away all your secrets. What can you do that can kind of put him in a position where he is driving, looking back at you and make a mistake?
Just getting closer, just breathing down his neck closer and closer. You know, I never felt like I got close enough to really put him in a position to where he had to try harder. We did see him, I think, coming to the white flag. He touched the fence in 3 and 4. But other than that, I mean, I never really got close enough. But what was the strangest to me, I kind of mentioned it before, but he was on the same tires as the 20 and the 5. And he and we drove away 5 seconds from the rest of the field. Where did he find 5 seconds in pace to drive away from the other cars that had the same tires as he That's my question, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
All right, Stuart Haas, we will call you later.
That's where I will give the credit to the driver who came and pulled everything out that he possibly could pull out in those championship-style moments. You know, he was able to do that in that.
Watching that race, though, like Chase was stalking Kyle. And it was almost like he had something left, and he wasn't pushing the 5 to use up all his stuff, so they didn't work on their car maybe as hard, and it showed up there at the end.
I know it's, car and driver, but I mean, they mentioned him kind of under the pressure for the 300 and plus employees, Stewart Haas Racing employees. Of course, they're closing operations at the end of the year, and a lot of those folks don't know where they're going to be next year. What is that moment like for those employees sitting watching at home or sitting in the facility watching this win and knowing what he's produced for them?
Well, we talk a lot about sports and winning and the playoffs because, sports is like the last great frontier, right, of human performance. But for these men and women at Stewart Haas Racing, this is a life moment, right? They're losing their jobs. This company is shutting down. So while they are all looking for other work, they kind of rallied around them. And it's great to say you want to have one moment, but I wonder if that's not even as big as Kevin Harvick was and winning a championship and what Tony Stewart did to SHR, the team he co-owns. I think this win, if it is their final win, kind of gives them all a moment, right, where they all can share in success in perhaps the most trying time for the organization, knowing they're not going to be around in 10 weeks.
And it's harder, right? Because, they are losing. Like, what is it like when you're leaving or the organization's going away? Do they start to pull back and you don't have as much as you possibly can when you hit that racetrack?
I would say there's definitely distractions, right? Like, as you said, there's others that are they're looking for work. They're looking for jobs. They got to put food on their table. So they're out there looking for other things. There are other crew chiefs or engineers or team personnel that have signed deals for other places that they're going. So maybe they feel a little bit better. And they want to show.
Chase Briscoe does, right? Chase Briscoe's moving on.
Right. The 19
yeah, I mean, a couple crew chiefs are as well, too. So, that just kind of shows them being able to put their mindset of like, let's go out strong. Let's show people how strong we are, how much dedication we have to this sport, to this team, to the people that have been around us for however long they've been there, the last 14, 15 years of SHR. So I think it's a pretty cool story for real. And then it's the human aspect. It's the human nature, too, of seeing that place and wanting everyone there to go out there to succeed.
Well, the million-dollar question for me, though, then, is how far did this emotional momentum carry them? Yeah. Because I've been a part of wins that are this emotional, maybe not this emotional, but big moments. Maybe our comeback win with Dale Jr., when him and I went to victory lane after multiple years of going winless. And it was great, but I will tell you, by the end of that week, returning all the text messages and the phone call, I was exhausted. Like, I was mentally cooked for the next week. So while you would think it would be a great way to enter the playoffs, I just wonder if the emotion will drain the team or if that's the cloud they're going to ride through the play. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go.
That place, Stewart Haas specifically, when I was there in 14 and we won that championship with Harvick, like that place runs off of that emotion, though.
Yeah.
Like they feed off of that. And for them to be coming to an end, to get that one more time. And guys, the resources that they had throughout the whole year, they were kind of dwindling. Like there was times they were going to the racetrack, their computers weren't even working to do their engineering stuff that they needed to do to compete. So for them to fight through all that and to still win a crown jewel event, it's badass.
But there are a lot of drivers, or a handful of drivers, that are in this field that are riding those emotions, right? Because we've seen a lot of drama happen in the last couple weeks. These are the guys who made it to the playoffs. Of course, Harrison Burton and Chase Briscoe this past weekend, sort of the walk-off wins. Austin Dillon does have a win, not listed on there, obviously, because his victory at Richmond did not count towards the playoffs, did get the victory. And then, of course, you've got Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr., who made it in on points. Martin Truex Jr. found out that he was in when he was on his airplane, landed at his airplane. He didn't even know because, of course, he only made it 2 laps in the race. But are you surprised that Darlington was the place that mixed it up the way that it did? I mean, you think of Daytona, right? You know that there could be a new winner, but Darlington?
I would not have expected, besides myself, for there to be a walk-off winner at Darlington. I mean, to be honest with you, I was looking at Truex needed to win. He didn't have a win, but I was looking at Larson. I was looking at Denny. Those two have been probably the strongest the last little bit of laps led and time up front and being in position. So I looked at those two guys as like, okay, what are they going to do? How are they going to run this race and be able to score the win? How can I beat them, going in? So Briscoe wasn't even on the radar, not even a thought. So for him to be able to get it done and to be able to do it in that fashion was good.
Lesson learned for me. I'm going to be very careful making predictions.
Yeah.
Because of what I had Kyle as one of those non-winners that I thought could get it done at Darlington. And I had my small list. Chase wasn't on it. and no different than Harrison wasn't on my Daytona list, right? So I think, it would be silly to not learn from this. And I think that's what's going to make this playoff run these next 10 weeks, specifically these next 3, the rounds of the playoffs. 3 races make up round 1. 4 drivers get eliminated after 3 weeks. Even the favorites in years past, I think you could feel confident and kind of send them through.
Yeah.
This year, I'm a little concerned that it could go off the rails quick.
I had the 8 of Kyle Busch winning races probably 5 times this year, and I was wrong, unfortunately, all those times. But then
I can count the 5 that I could have got.
I probably picked you on those ones. So, but the thing about it is then you guys turned it around, right? And momentum is so big in this sport. And when you guys start hitting on something, there's something to build off of. When you don't know how to get to the top 10 and you're flopping around at 25th, that's the hardest. So for like the 14 to really get that momentum matters here, and they're going to the playoffs with some.
And you talk about some of these guys who are a little more hungry, right? Because they kind of snuck in and they might come out swinging at Atlanta. All right, if you think it was a crappy day for bubble drivers, wait till we tell you about Tyler Reddick's race. You get it? No, is it funny?
Too soon.
Too soon. He gutted it out for a regular season championship. We'll tell you what we mean. Laughs already.
Yeah, I think Kyle will be a really good analyst.
He's going to be an analyst?
I've never known Kyle to be unbiased, but I think he's going to try on a new shoe this year.
Honestly, I can't even picture it. The only thing that worries me is that he has very, very little filter, so.
Kyle is brutally honest. He'll definitely tell you how he feels. He's not going to sugarcoat anything.
More off the rail, the better. I think people enjoy that about Kyle because he's genuine and he's being real when he's saying that stuff.
I think his unfilteredness is great. I think the fans will really appreciate that. And two, I think Kyle would bring a different kind of perspective to the race fan, as well as even a different way to describe things that drivers, when they watch, might, ponder on a little bit.
He's very, very knowledgeable from every single series.
Only one of the best our sport's ever seen. Certainly he's going to be able to give some insight to the fans.
They got really nice at the end because they realized that they're going to have to be racing you the next 10 weeks.
It didn't start that way. Either racing me or me dogging them. One or the other.
Wait a second. Danny Hamlin's going to throw shade, the podcaster himself, about a driver analyst? I don't know. I'm going to have to call my man out for that.
What's the one thing that race fans wouldn't think about Kyle Busch? I've been always like, what's one thing about you that is probably underestimated about you?
I don't know, honestly.
I think we all know who Kyle Busch is. I think we all have a pretty good grasp of who Kyle is.
Things are different when you're at the racetrack.
That's what I'm
sweaty. You got this helmet on, everything. It's just, yeah. So, being an analyst or just being someone who can watch the sport from afar and or be inside it and then be able to talk about it is hard to do, right? Like, it's not something easy. Like, I don't want to be dogging on those guys at times, but hey, if you're going to do something dumb, boy, we're going to spell it out. Right?
I get the question all the time, if you could crew chief for another driver, who would it be? And Kyle's always been the guy. And it's just simply because I never doubt where he stands. And I almost appreciate that.
Yeah.
Some guys are kind of like, a little soft-spoken or not outspoken enough. Now, while, it can get heated at times, I appreciate kind of the desire to run well. I mean, that's what competitive nature should be.
That's right.
Winning. Let's win.
Yes. You know where you stand with Kyle, and he makes everybody better because he wants everyone around him to do the best that they can, which is what we're going to do right here. Right now, we had another guy who was pretty candid on social media after the race, and that would be the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Check out this, what Denny Hamlin sent on social media.
I might as well at least touch it. You got one of these, don't you? No. You do now. I think I got that says champion on its Daytona. Way to go. Way to go. Good job.
This, of course, was Tyler Reddick winning the regular season championship, the team co-owned by Denny Hamlin and the GOAT, the great one, Michael Jordan. He touched the trophy.
Did he touch it?
Did he touch? That's bad luck to touch the trophy?
Yeah, I mean, I would never look at one before a race.
Before winning it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. We're going to find out.
Man, it's the participation trophy.
Maybe.
Wait.
I don't care.
Up regular season part. I mean,
hey, I got a couple of those. What are you talking about?
But like that's the regular season championship, right? Like that is basically like, hey, you had a good regular season, and in a week from now, nobody cares.
You're the number one guy going into the playoffs.
Would you have cared? Would you have cared? You would have
No,
really?
I led the in 07 when the points reset. we were leading the regular season, and all they said was, "See you next week."
But when you win an Eastern Conference final,
that's right.
Those guys do not touch that trophy. They're like, the owners can, because we want the big one. We want the one that really matters.
So did he jinx 23-11 or Hamlin? Who got jinxed in this?
We're going to find out in 10 weeks. Exactly.
Okay.
Denny's turned over a new leaf, so maybe he was thinking, hey, if I touch that thing, like I'm going to get the big one at the end of the year, where years prior he was like, oh, you can't touch that thing. So he has never touched one.
Well, I mean, anything and everything has happened to Denny Hamlin while he's been trying to go for it. So he's like, heck, I mean, nothing else can go wrong. We have tape too big, everything. What do you think the pressure is for Denny and for Tyler, having Michael Jordan kind of, and I'm not saying he's looking over their shoulder, I'm not saying that he's judging it, but to know what he's done and know that he's a part of this sport because you brought him in, the desire and the urge and the pressure to perform, what do you think that is?
Those guys have such a resource at their fingertips of being able to talk to that guy, ask him questions. How did you handle X moment, or what did you do? What was your thought process? All of those things to get inside the mind of the greatest of all time. You know, and to have that resource is just phenomenal. You know, like that's one thing that I feel like could make anyone great. And I think he raises the bar for anyone that works there at 2311, because they know who that guy is and they know what his accomplishments have been. And even though he was doing it himself, playing the game, being the player, he wasn't necessarily the coaching staff or the engineers or the crew chiefs or anything like that. But that's, you can't ever, it's no different than Coach Gibbs, right? Like, we all looked at him and we asked him those same sorts of questions because he put himself in those spots with so many great players over the years. How can I be one of his great players and go out and win a championship?
Well, I mean, look at basically this climb that 2311's been on in just 4 short years.
Crazy.
4 years, and here they are. I picked on it, but they won the regular season championship. They've won with both race cars. They've got, Tyler Reddick deep into the playoffs too, very high in the standings. So I think what Michael Jordan does and what Denny Hamlin and him have done together is, first of all, they have the business acumen to keep the sport or owning a race team successful. But there's a lot of businessmen that can do that. But then they straddle the fence between businessmen and sports figure. And I think they have that instant, they relate to their employees. And to your point, Kyle, I think there's no owner I would want to make more proud than Michael Jordan. Every time I get to meet him now, I'm still awestruck. I've met the guy multiple times. He's still Michael Jordan. I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's worth at least 3/10.
Yeah.
Like, it's worth at least
It wasn't practice at Darlington. I swore the 45 was going to be lights out in the race.
And when pit reporter Dave Burns asked him what he would say to Bubba Wallace in the middle of the race, I stopped everything. We were watching it with a bunch of people. I made them rewind it and listen to it again because I was like, do you know what we just got? We just got a motivational speech from Michael Jordan. This is a moment so cool. Tyler Reddick, of course, he was able to go on and win the regular season championship. He did so by 1 point over Kyle Larson, and this is why. He's had a great season. 11 top fives. A lot of those are top threes. Average finish of 11.2. But finishing the race at Darlington may have been the most impressive thing he's done all season, and that was because he was battling a stomach bug. And guys, things got a little dicey inside that race car.
That's the worst I've felt. Friday, I started really struggling, and it was terrible on Saturday. Felt good pretty much all the way up until the race. Must have been the bump off of 2 or something. It just really got bad by the end of stage 1. Just at one point, I was just waiting to puke all over myself and a whole lot of other gross stuff. So we were able to avoid a lot of that, which is nice, but it was extremely uncomfortable in the car all night.
All right, number one, I know is not a problem for drivers inside the car, right? I know that's a question you all get, right? What do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? And number one's not
Denny
a problem.
loves it now.
He's a big fan of it.
Yeah, he's a big fan of that. I've tried. I can't do it. I don't know why. But anyway, sorry. So.
But the other things, not so much, right? Have you ever had to battle any of that?
No, I've never had a stomach bug. I did have the flu one time, and I had to bow out. Like, I knew I couldn't do the whole weekend. So I was supposed to run Xfinity and the Cup race at Fontana out in California. It was the September month, so it was super hot out there. And so I was just like, so Denny actually got in my car. I went from running 3rd in the Xfinity race to Denny crashing it for me. And then the next day, I was in the Cup car, and I think I was running 8th or something. I had to get out, and they put David Gilliland in to finish the race for me. So that was the worst I've ever been. Every other time that I've been under the weather, I've been able to run through.
I loved what you said about definitely not replacing him, right?
Well, yeah, so the rules would say that once Tyler starts the race, you're allowed to put a driver in like what happened to you. Now, 2 challenges. First of all, Tyler Reddick is not the tallest driver out there, right? So the number of drivers, like, there's no way Kyle's fitting in Tyler's car.
I don't think I'm fitting.
No. You'd be like when your wife borrows your car and you try to get in and can't get in the driver's seat.
It would look like MJ trying to drive my car.
Exactly, same idea. But I will tell you, the other thing is the way that the system works, that being the last regular season race, is they weren't racing for much other than the regular season championship. I would have took a crazy approach. If he had to throw the towel in, I would have just parked the car. I would have had this as a moment where we would have circled the wagons and said, Reddick is our guy. He is the man. And if he can't drive it, nobody's going to drive it. Put it on the truck. We'll see y'all next week. And that would be like, that would just prove to the garage how much confidence, even if there's a little fake confidence, that's how much confidence we have heading into the playoffs.
Right.
And it would support the driver. Like, you didn't let us down. We're all in this together.
Yeah, I love that.
But realistically,
you could have gotten in the car for him.
I told him when I was walking the grid, I said, "Hey, it's Tyler. If you need some help, I got you, man. I got my stuff in the."
And he risked throwing up.
Yeah. Realistically, no one's getting in that car that was there, that was on premises.
Yeah.
Like even if you asked Martin Truex Jr., who wrecked out on lap 2, to get in it, even if you pulled all the inserts out of the seat, he's not fitting in that car because the pedals are going to be way too close. Because Tyler is, not large in stature.
Yeah, I mean, these seats are custom built, right? That's not one size fit many, right? I mean, they're custom built.
Yeah.
So it'd be tough.
Well, I mean, we've had other examples of athletes playing hurt in other sports. It doesn't happen crazy. It doesn't happen that much in our sport, despite the fact that you guys race all year long. But, of course, Kerry Strug with the broken ankle, that was incredible. Michael Jordan with the flu game, that you could kind of compare it to that. Kurt Schilling, remember that bloody sock? Yeah, what are we doing there for? What's the
New England guys?
Oh,
the bloody sock was a big moment.
Bloody sock was a big. Tiger Woods, of course, after knee surgery, the U.S. Open, and all of these examples. So when you are sick in the car and you're going, does it distract you at all? Sort of like having to hit your marks and doing what you're doing.
Even having to go to the bathroom is distracting because you're going over these bumps and your bladder's full. It's like
you just can't go. You're like, I gotta stop.
Yeah. Can I take a pit stop, guys? No, you're going. It's definitely distracting. You're trying to hit your marks. You want to hit your braking points. You know where the bumps are on the racetrack, so you're just trying to find your way around traffic, things like that. You're not trying to Darlington, right? You talked about it earlier, right up next to the wall. You run there from the start of the green flag. So making sure you keep your focus and your focus on the racetrack, that's a hard task.
It's got to be miserable.
I mean, he broke.
And it was hot. Let's talk about how hot it was.
It was smoke show hot.
It was hot out there. I mean, yeah.
But he had to come back from an injury, a broken leg. Like, you had to figure out how to not only deal with that, but then again, drive the car the same way and have all the feel back. So doing all that with a broken limb, like, that's out of control, bro.
Physical and mental hurdles there, I would assume.
For sure. No, definitely. Yeah, the foot, my left foot was the worst in having to come back, especially Sonoma, where we were able to win when, I don't know, 5th race back or something like that. So just that I don't even know how to describe it, but that aptitude of the pain and battling through that, and like I was 15 laps to go, I think, maybe 8 laps to go. There was a caution that came out in that race. And I was like, my foot is killing me. Like, I can't, like, I'm about ready to tap out. And then we come down pit road and we leave pit road first on tires. And I'm like, what foot? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't remember nothing. But then the checker flag flew and I was like, oh, man.
But of course, it's all the crew chief, though, right?
Well, adrenaline's great till it wears off.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, he's going to not mention that went on to be a championship season, right?
Yeah.
So the bounce back from an injury was more than impressive.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive part, was that you were able to come back from that, get over those hurdles, miss all of those races, and then go on to win the championship.
Great stuff, great team, great people, all that. It all comes together, makes it happen.
It really was. This is a great team as well, and we've got more here on Inside the Playoffs as we're getting you ready for the playoffs kicking off in Atlanta. 16 drivers will compete for a championship, all going down to Phoenix in 10 weeks. We'll pick our favorites maybe a little bit later in the show. What do you guys think? Yeah? Yay?
Yeah.
Yay or nay? Yay!
2024 NASCAR Cup Series Playoffs.
Ready to go. And how about Jamingo?
He won and gotten in.
Trying to stay in the game. Fight. Take what's yours, baby.
This is my time.
I'm so freaking proud of you.
About the celebration.
This is my time.
Pressure continues to build.
All right, so I know we have a lot of new fans to the sport of NASCAR, so we're going to try to break this down for you a little bit. We got 16 drivers that start the next 10 weeks. Those are playoff drivers, but yes, the rest of the field, they are still on the track. These 16 are the only ones that are going for a championship, however. It will then be cut down to 12, 8, and 4. 4 eventually will race for the championship in Phoenix. So 10 total races, 3 elimination rounds. Basically, it's like 3 mini seasons with a final championship at the end, almost like a final 4, because there are 4. The 4 drivers that are lowest in points will be eliminated after every 3 races. Did I do that as well as you do that?
Well, don't forget this, though. There's also the golden ticket, and I think that's the magical point of these playoffs. In each round, if you win, you advance to the next round. Winning should trump everything. It always has in motorsport, and it still does in these playoffs. So points are important. You got to be above that cut line, but victory lane solves all your problems.
Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so, besides the fact that there's going to be some spoilers out there, guys that aren't in the playoffs that are going to try to win races and save their seasons and put their name on the mark in order to have a winning.
Felt like that was some self-reflection over there in the corner.
He's calling his shot a little bit, as he should.
I like it.
I love that, because you do got guys like Kyle, like Ross Chastain, like Bubba Wallace that have had speed over the last couple weeks, and they really want to win races. I know this guy really wants to win one. He has a streak to keep going, so it's going to be interesting.
I know we're all fans of other sports, right? And so when you watch the NCAA basketball tournament, it is that single elimination. A team that's won all season, not necessarily the guy or the team that goes on to win the championship, because you got to win to get in. How much harder does that make it to win a championship for you guys?
It makes it really difficult. I mean, the 3 mini seasons, you have these races, the 3 races that you go to for each round is difficult, because you can have one bad one that can literally eliminate you. But honestly, you can come right back next week, and if you win, boom, that knocks you right through. So it's really, really weird and awkward kind of to be in these positions each week, and especially through the week, not necessarily just at the racetrack on the weekend, but through the week, you're trying to figure out what's my strategy going to be going into that weekend? How can I make this happen? How can I pull this through? So lots of different factors that will come through with 16 different drivers.
16 drivers in this first mini season. These 3 races are Atlanta, which is 1.5 miles at races like Daytona and Talladega, drafting, pack racing. We go to Watkins Glen, which is always crazy, a road course, turning both directions. And then Bristol, the last great Coliseum, is its own animal on its own. And then the field itself is just condensed. Nobody's kind of run away. While there are drivers at the top of the points, they have an advantage because they won races in the regular season. They scored a little bit of a playoff points, which kind of does the seeding.
Yep.
But with everybody condensed and this group of races, I really think there are going to be some, what you call the brackets, there's going to be some 15-2 upsets.
Yeah, there's going to be some bracket busting going on for sure. Listen, the Atlanta is everyone has to have nervous energy going there, because it can change your whole playoff in an instant, because we are drafting and it's pack racing. So making a mistake early will really hinder your opportunity to move on late. If you're the 21, the 14, I think the 2, the 99, you really circle this one. Let's win this race and make our way in. But then things change throughout the race. If there's a big wreck early that knocks off some of those top guys, maybe you're like, whoa, let's pull it back and just go for the points and make sure we make it through the race.
And that is a question that I get asked all the time. It's like, wait a minute, so these drivers that are going for a championship, the other guys are still on the track with them? And it's like, yeah, they are. And that gives an opportunity to play spoiler as well. We'll show you the 16 guys that are going for a championship. Take a look. It's full, right? You've got 6 former champions, 2 first-time playoff drivers, Harrison Burton and Ty Gibbs, and then you've got 3 teams with all drivers qualifying for the playoffs, and there are arguments as to whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think one thing that you don't see here printed out, the guys that didn't make it into the playoffs, and some of those highlights, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher, and of course Kyle Busch, all guys who have made the championship in past seasons. And so what does that say about how hard it is to make the playoffs every single year?
I mean, it is. It's difficult. I mean, our sport is hard. It wasn't easy. It's so easy to fall down, and it's so hard to work your way and build your way back up to the top. So the biggest things that we've struggled as the 8 team this year was just the inconsistencies through the summer of bad finishes, of getting involved in wrecks with other people, and just having those races not go our way. Give me some of those races back, and we're back in the points mix around Bubba Wallace. Give me some of those races where you counted on 5 where I could have won. Give me one of those, Atlanta, springtime, right? And we're in. We have no problem, and we're turning it on right now and getting back going in the right direction right at the right time. unfortunately, we're on the outside looking in, so we're not in the playoff picture.
Buy or sell. Let's play a little game of buy or sell. You're going to start first, right? Who are you buying to move on, and who are you selling to not move on?
Looking at my trusty notes.
You have your notes? I have my notes too. Where are your notes, Kyle?
I'm here.
He's got it all up top, baby. Advancing, I got the 5 of Larson, the 12 of Ryan Blaney, the 45 of Tyler Reddick, and the 20 of Christopher Bell. Lock them in. They're going to the round of 12.
I don't hate those 4. I'll add to it. I'm willing to go more than 4. I'll put Denny Hamlin and William Byron. I'll make it 6. That I think they don't have to be perfect because they have a few points in the bank. They have a little bit of a head start, and they have something very simple that we've yet to talk about on this show, and that's they're fast.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about racing, all these buzzwords. The simple fact is they are fast enough versus their competition that they can trip up at lap 100, 150, 200 and recover. The guys towards the bottom, when I look at their teams and their overall speed, they have to be closer to perfect on execution than the guys at the top.
Okay, that's fine. Unless
okay, that's
took that a little personal.
He's about to put you down here. Get him, KB.
Unless you go to Atlanta and the 5, 4, 6 of those guys are all caught up in a crash at Atlanta and DNF for the day. Okay, then they go to Watkins Glen. You can only have one winner, right? And the rest of them are 3rd to 15th. And then you go to Bristol. What did we see in the first Bristol race this year with the tire game, right? Yeah. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the tire game going back to Bristol this time around and if it's going to be the same race. So I can't really predict that all 6 of those. Now, I agree with you on raw speed. But as far as things happening in this sport, they seem to happen quite regularly.
I got to teach them. You know the best part about TV? You don't have to be right.
No.
Throw it on out there. If you're not
Weatherman.
Right. Yeah, 50%.
Weatherman.
That's right. And we'll only pull the clips back if you're wrong. But
Right.
To look back. So is it too early for you to even think about who could win a championship this season? I think it is. Everyone asks me that question, and I'm like, there's no way.
Everybody wants to do the bracket challenge, right? They all want to pick their final 4 and then their champion by the end. And so that's fine. You can do that. Do I think it changes? Absolutely. You know, I don't know. Somebody will have a perfect bracket, I'm sure. Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. But, you know, I've got my 5 guys who I feel like are probably first-round knockouts. And then I've got my 5 guys who are my final 4 championship guys, yeah.
What do you guys think? Too early? Yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell us.
Thank you for doing my job for me. Yes. Yeah. Well, who are your guys, Kyle Busch?
All right. Unfortunately, I want to be a Team Chevy player, but I don't see the 99 making it through the first round. I think the 48 struggles as well too through the first round. Although he was a winner at a road course, and we do go to Watkins Glen, so that could be an outlier. You know, I see the 14 struggling, not making it through. I see the 21 struggling, not making it through. And yeah, so I think those are my kind of guys that I eliminate early in the playoff structure. I would say Larson, to me, he's a lock for the Final 4. I look at Denny being a lock for the Final 4. And I'm on the fence with my next 2, but I'm going to go with Blaney as a Final 4 guy, and I'm going to go as Reddick as a Final 4 guy. And so I say that when you went back to that graphic, if you remember, you had all 4 Hendrick cars in, you had all 4 JGR cars in, you had all 4 Team Penske guys in. What do all 3 of those teams have in common? They are the top manufacturer team of each manufacturer. So they have the most resources, the most amounts. I believe there will be one of each of those in.
Yeah, we used to call them McNuggets. Now that's a Kyle Busch nugget right there. You brought one for the show.
4. I didn't know he was going to go all the way.
It's a Busch beef. I don't know.
I'm not too much different. I think Harrison Burton and the 21. Love that the Wood brothers got their 100th win at Daytona, the whole thing. I just don't really see them going any further than that unless
they win Atlanta?
Unless they win Atlanta.
Okay.
That's the only outlier I think for them. Yep. Suarez did win Atlanta in the spring. I just don't think that's going to happen again, and the speed hasn't really been there for Trackhouse. Cindric has been they haven't executed well enough. Like, they've had spots of speed.
If Blaney doesn't run out of gas,
he's not in.
If Cindric doesn't spin out at Nashville,
Logano's not in. So, like, those guys have had some luck to get there. And then this is where, so I got the 19, the 54, or the 22 out. I don't know which one of those guys is going to be it. It's going to be one of those 3.
You just picked the whole bottom half and said it's going to be a group of them?
He picked 5, and you didn't say anything. I picked a couple guys.
I'm not even going to feel bad about it. Harrison Burton, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric. The numbers are the numbers. They won a race. They deserve to be here. Celebrate it. They're in the playoffs. I'm not going to take that away from them. And they have every opportunity, and I hope I'm wrong, but the numbers say they're not going to make it.
Right.
I actually think Chase Briscoe has firepower. I think he's on a lot of other guys' lists. I have a shocker. I am a little concerned for either Keselowski or Logano. I think those two cars right there, road course in the middle for Brad, and poor Joey Logano just can't seem to finish in Atlanta. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I will avoid the 22 at Atlanta. Thank you, Steve.
Wait, I picked one more than he did, and he picked 2 out.
Yeah, but
I was the one.
He's got the louder voice today, right now. So
today,
in general. Okay, let's move on to a commercial. But when we get back, we want to ask all of you guys: do you think that Richmond changed NASCAR forever? The last lap, maybe, maybe not. We're going to think about that during the commercial break. Come back and maybe ask Kyle what he thinks. We'll be right back. We'll remind you of the 16 drivers who will be competing for a championship this season. There they are when we unload in Atlanta. Everyone's got a shot. And when you look at Chase Briscoe, Harrison Burton, those are the two that were way out of the top 16, winning races in the last 2 weeks to advance to the playoffs. How much did those two wins, Steve, change just the entire complexity of the playoffs?
Well, it changed the look of the playoffs, and I think it was kind of a notice. The rest of the field and the playoff field is on notice now that don't rule anyone out. Anything can truly happen at certain racetracks.
Yeah, I mean, to win and advance, win and survive, that's the name of this game. For someone like Ty Gibbs, who has never won in the Cup Series yet, I don't know if he's going to win at the playoff level. That's different. We're used to seeing him win in Xfinity. He's won a championship. But doing it here, that's going to be really, really hard. So we'll see with the 54.
I agree with that.
Does it go like regular season and then playoffs? It just like, I mean, the intensity just ramps up?
Not the first round. I wouldn't say the first round does. I think the first round you can kind of breeze your way through, especially if you're a guy at the top. But do you look at those guys that are at the top, if they have trouble and put themselves down at the bottom for the next week going to Watkins Glen, do you want to be in that situation? You don't want to be in that situation. So do you play it easy at Atlanta and you just kind of ride around all day and let everybody kind of crash out and take a couple of those names off the top?
What are you shaking?
I don't think Kyle Larson's going to ride around.
Yeah, you know what loses a football game is prevent defense.
Yeah.
Let's not work on prevent racing.
You got to play offense.
Let's win racing.
Just go out there and win. Austin Dillon did win at Richmond. However, the victory that he got in Richmond did not count towards the playoffs because of the last lap and what we saw in the last lap. And everyone remembers this if you saw the highlights. He dumps to 22, he goes into the wall, and then Denny Hamlin comes across his nose, and then this happens. So the win was taken away from him in terms of counting towards the playoffs, but not the win. Richard Childress Racing did appeal. They lost 2 times that appeal, and this is what RC had to say after that. He said their ruling has changed NASCAR on the final lap forever. Has it?
Listen,
has it?
So I respect Richard Childress. He used to own the car that the great Dale Sr. drove, so he has seen a tremendous amount of racing. But I respectfully, completely disagree. The move was egregious. It was over the top. Not penalizing the 3, I think would have changed the last lap in NASCAR racing forever. I think a no penalty would have been way bigger shift to what NASCAR racing is than actually penalizing the 3 car, because I think it was over the limit.
I'm going to actually agree with RC, but in a different way. It is going to change it, but for the better, because we had reached that threshold of that you can't just run through people to win races, hooking somebody. If it was just a 22 thing, if it was just him running over Logano, don't love it, but like
bump and run moment, right?
Yeah,
like there are still going to be those bump and run moments.
Yeah.
Are there going to be the Xbox moves of just trying to win no matter who's around you or who's in front of you? Yeah. I think that's kind of what we're talking about. What RC's talking about is that's not going to be allowed anymore. Like there was a
hold on. So the $1 million question is, you finished second the next 2 races.
I sure did.
So did you, is any of that resonating, or are you just driving like you always have and you feel like you had an understanding? I mean, you're the guy that was in the seat.
Yep.
Ours are hypotheticals.
Yeah, I mean, Daytona, for instance, coming down final lap with Harrison, like for me, it was how can I make a move, any move, in order to make it cleanly to be able to get the win? And I was a little late on a couple of my moves that probably made the race end cleanly. If I would have timed it a little bit differently, it would have not been so cleanly. And then Darlington, for instance, like, did I process the thought of like, hey, could I 45-17 this right now?
Right.
Or
that's different.
Or 22 to the 24 and just knock him into the wall and break his right rear toe link coming to the checkered. I don't think I was close enough. So in those two instances, I mistimed one, and I don't think I was close enough in the other. But did the thought cross your mind? It certainly did, but third place was 5 seconds back. So it would have been one instance, one guy that I would have had to deal with, not 2 or 3.
So you're willing to wreck. You just perhaps
Bump
don't want
and
to go
run.
in.
Bump and run, Steve.
So you're willing to bump and run if it turns into a wreck. And I'm
because they're a clean racing
as long
move.
as your attempt isn't, hey, I'm just going to junk the guy.
Yeah, sledgehammer. No sledgehammer. Let's scalpel this
I like
thing.
that. I like that.
There are clean racing moves, a racing move, and I think that's what I heard a lot because he was so far away from Joey, kind of came in. It wasn't necessarily, and I heard people say that, a racing move per se. He just ran into him. But we've seen that happen a lot, especially with Joey and Denny, and so it was interesting. I think that was the argument.
Joey and Denny, Kyle and Denny, Kyle Busch and Denny,
Kyle and Kyle.
Like, yeah, we're not short on controversy.
Not on controversy. So I think that's where people were like, hey, the two guys who kind of have done this the most are the ones that are complaining
the best part
the
about
most.
the whole thing. It's like, wait, let's turn the tape back a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember something with Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano getting into it at Kansas when Joey was already into the next round. So, like, this stuff happens.
It does. And Matt wasn't too happy about that. We're going to be happy about this. Racing in Atlanta this weekend. It is such a fast, fun racetrack, but a lot can happen, especially when the playoffs are on the line. We'll get you ready for that and that right there, that outfit, when we come back inside the playoffs.
Where does he block? Does he block high? Does he block low? Here it comes. Kyle Busch to the middle. Shooting a gap. 3 wide. Off turn 4. Here they come to the flag. 3 abreast. Photo finish.
The race finish is under review.
Scoring has the margin between the first 3 cars at 0.00 seconds.
Race winner is a 99.
How cool was that?
Not very cool.
It wasn't,
especially when you're the third place finisher in a finish that close. I mean, come on.
Definitely should have looked over here.
How cool was that? Just to see that finish. So some of the finishes that we've seen this year. But listen,
I have been a highlight reel my whole life, and that is just added to the top.
Listen, forever, Atlanta was this worn-out racetrack that drivers were like, do not repave. We love it the way that it is. Now it is a fast racetrack, and drivers think what?
Yeah, it's action all the time. It's no rest. You know, I mean, Atlanta, the old Atlanta was the same way, right? Like you're driving around there, you're loose, you're sideways, you're trying to stay in control of your car. But now it's like you're doing all those same things with everyone packed up right up on tight together. So it is fast, it is close, it is don't mess up, and even times when you feel like you do mess up, or others make a 3-wide move to the outside, like you kind of feel boxed in at times, you know, but guys are making moves, guys are making passes, and exciting finishes like that, they're going to keep coming back.
You know what it is? It's the #1 ticket in NASCAR. And I hate to say that because I love Bristol, and the Bristol night race will always be something that you'll never get to experience, that place on top of the mountains in Tennessee. But standing in the booth, covering it for television, looking out the window, it makes my brain cramp. It doesn't look like it should because it's Daytona and Talladega, which we've seen forever, and then you squish it into this punch bowl of Atlanta, and it is just the speeds may only, I hate to say only, but read like 190, which we see at other tracks, but at that racetrack in those confines, it looks like 250.
And under the lights.
And under the lights. Like it is something that in my 30 years of NASCAR, this will be my 3rd trip down there to watch it in person. My brain can't quite comprehend what I'm seeing. So I can't imagine behind the wheel because just watching it out the window, it's unbelievable.
The thing I struggle with the most is when you guys go from 190 and try to get down pit road under green. That getting around the bottom.
You struggle with it and they struggle with it.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know how they're going to slow down enough to make that corner. And then seemingly you guys do it most of the time.
Yeah.
It's like almost like getting in your car after a race and then having to go to the speed limit because like it feels so slow, I'm sure.
It does, yeah. When you go from 190, which you do feel like you're going 200, 210, whatever, because it's just so tight and action-packed, everything all the time, that when you slow down to that 90 miles an hour just to go through turns 3 and 4, then you got to get to 45 for pit road. Like, it's a big drop-off. You feel like you are crawling.
Does it feel faster than like a Talladega or a Daytona?
Yes.
It does feel faster inside the race car.
It does.
It looks faster too, right, man? Oof, those cars are
What
whipping
happens
around.
when it wears out? and then the racing gets spread out. Do we repave it again?
I'm not sure it will get spread out. I have an opinion.
Yeah?
I think it'll look like this forever.
Is this gonna...
They'll just keep cranking the downforce on the cars, and they'll keep them packed together.
We'll save that for next week when we're talking about Atlanta. Just keep doing it. So Atlanta this weekend, we'll tell you what the other tracks are in round 1 of the playoffs. We've got Watkins Glen. That could, I mean, listen, Bristol. Anything could happen over the 3-week span of the first round of the playoffs. You look at these 3 races and you think, what, Kyle?
I think restrictor plate style racing at Atlanta, crashes can happen. It's going to take out some names. And then I look at Bristol, the unknowns with the tire game that we saw there in the spring. You're going to see some of the same stuff this time around that I don't think they changed the tire. And then Watkins Glen, whoever's good at road racing is most likely going to be up front. That's where they're going to score their points in order to get their cushion for what happens at Bristol.
What do you think?
I look at highlight reel, highlight reel, highlight reel. These 3 tracks. Funny, he's done all these highlights, like the famous finish that you had with Ambrose at Watkins Glen. Like these guys just create moments, right? Sports are about the moment. The final score is great, and we're going to cheer on our favorite team or our favorite driver, but the moment is what you walk away from, right? We had 4 hours at Darlington, but we remember the finish. I think those 3 tracks could create some memorable moments.
Memorable moments. We got a lot of new fans watching. They're going to be excited and glued to the TV. I think about Watkins Glen mainly because I don't want to say the R word, but if it rains, that just throws the whole thing.
You just said it. Like, you literally said, I don't want to say it, and then you said it.
I said I didn't want to say it. I didn't say I wasn't going to say it.
Oh.
I hadn't thought about that. Wow, that could really change the whole
And there's your parting gift for show 1.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I see spoiler, because I think that we could see spoilers any single week. You said
every race.
Every race.
One of the, throw rain in the equation at Watkins Glen. There will be a spoiler in every race.
Without a doubt.
Shane Van Gisbergen, right? You guys mentioned him. Juan Pablo Montoya also. Let's not forget that JP is back, and he's going to be at Watkins Glen. That could be, I mean, listen, I know he hasn't been a car in a long time, but it could be a spoiler.
Well, don't get ahead of ourselves. You're talking about spoilers at Watkins Glen. I think there could be a spoiler at Atlanta. You know, Suarez, that 3-wide finish, there was another 4 or 5 drivers right there.
You did.
Okay, I'll give you that.
All right, you didn't want to say rain, you didn't want to say spoiler, whatever. How about we have, because it's your first show, well, you did an excellent job, by the way.
Thank you.
Will you come back next week? He's coming back next week. Let's have Mamba do the flag twirl, right?
No, it's not the flag twirl. What?
That's the bow. It's a bow with the twirl. With the twirl.
Thank you, Shannon. I haven't had a chance to do one this year, so
maybe this weekend. Come on, Mamba. We got a couple seconds left.
Buddy?
Woo! First inside the playoffs in the book. We will be back next